the mag pack, the
mats.
The mats, but it's for your watch as well, and then like folds up so you can take it to go. And then if you put it this way, you can attach it to your car because it's magnetized.
Interesting.
That's cool.
We're live streaming this at the exact same point that the Apple's doing their big announcement of new iPhone. So I'm sure Joe will cut in regularly with his hot takes on all things Apple related. But we have a podcast to do, and we don't have boats. We don't have Andy. We have Casey Ianelli, who is the wife of Joe Ianelli, but she's so much more than that because she is also a venue manager of a venue here in Kansas City and 2 venues down to Tennessee. And we want to talk about the music industry because that's something so near and dear to our hearts. Plug Your Holes has been so actively involved in the music industry. I tell people the story all the time. 14 years ago when I started the company, I didn't know how to do company stuff, but I knew how to tour. And so Plug Your Holes was always a big part of the music industry. And the music industry has been part of Plug Your Holes. Let's start the conversation. Walk me through kind of the timeline. What's been going on in the last 6 months as from your perspective?
Oh man, it's been a lot of ups and downs.
Okay.
So it's obviously started March 15th with the kind of across the country, every single state and city was starting with stay-at-home orders, and the first thing to happen was for concerts to start canceling or postponing. And that first day it was like, oh, this is happening, like here we go. And we were like just running around with our heads cut off, postponing shows to July and August, canceling shows completely, tours were canceling. And I say July and August because that's exactly what we thought would happen.
Oh yeah, I mean I remember talking to even a mutual friend of ours, Josh Barber, is a record producer engineer. And he was like swearing up and down at me, oh, this will be fine by June.
Yeah.
This will be fine. We just bumped a couple bands. We'll be fine.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. We moved a ton of stuff to July and August. And then, come May, when things started opening back up, we realized that this July and August were not realistic. And then it was like, maybe we can do something in the fall. And then now that's even, a little rougher. We have started doing some shows in our Tennessee venues. Our first one in Nashville is on Friday.
Okay.
So that's exciting. It is definitely smaller. It's way small capacity.
Can you walk me through just a little bit? I know the Truman here, about 1,000
Yes.
people can fit in the Truman. What are the other two? What are the other two venues in what, Chattanooga?
Yeah, so we have Chattanooga and Nashville. So the company that I am a part of, I'm the assistant GM of Marathon Live, and we own and operate 3 venues. And the first one is Marathon Music Works in Nashville, Tennessee, and that can hold about 1,800 people.
Okay.
And that one's been around for 9-ish years. I think we're coming up on 10 years pretty soon. And then we opened the Truman, which holds just under 1,300. It's 1,273 to be exact.
Which hit its 3-year birthday.
Yeah.
In the middle of all this shit.
Yeah, September 16th, I kind of looked at my, those memories that come up on your phone, and I was like, oh, today's the Truman's birthday.
But then you made an
Happy
awesome
birthday.
little video
Oh, yeah.
of a boombox playing Happy Birthday on the stage by itself, and then she does confetti.
It's really sad.
It's like the saddest
Oh,
thing.
I saw it. My eyes did not stay dry. So,
Yeah, well, it's the owner of the company singing Happy Birthday just to no one into a boombox, and it's just really, really sad. And then the third video that we opened in February of 2018, that one is the Signal in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they hold about 1,500.
Okay.
So the Truman is the smallest in
Okay.
Kansas City, but the socially distanced shows we're doing at about 250 people, so it's a lot smaller.
What does that look like as far as any sort of profitability or consistency or staffing or anything?
The expenses to run a space that large are very high.
And they don't go away. I mean, because a lot of people don't understand there's fixed overhead and there's variable overhead. So the fixed overhead is going to be things like rent and equipment rentals and things of that nature, staff that had stayed on. But just to open an event, you have to then bring in all these other variable expenses, which might be stocking the bar. It might be renting a sound guy or staffing that night or anything like that. What is that like? What is the split on that? Like, are you even getting to a point where you're covering these variable expenses and being able to throw a little bit at the fixed costs? Or is it just kind of doing it for the sake of doing it?
It's trying to make a profit, but it is very close to those margins. I'd say that we're breaking even, if barely, on some of these. I think, the goal is definitely to try to make a little bit, and any cash flow is better than none.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're at, is like any cash flow, and to stay relevant and to do this safely. Because if we start doing things safely now, then as we're allowed to do bigger and larger gatherings, we'll have that kind of under our belt,
It's almost like practice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It has like a purpose. And, even if some of the things are smaller and they're not making as much on that, it's just the idea that, like, at least you're doing something and, you'll get there eventually.
If we don't do anything, then we're just kind of sitting around, and that's no good for anybody, And
aren't you seeing a little bit of both of that? Like, some venues are doing too much, some are doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's like no one's coming together and kind of finding that middle ground to do it correctly.
It seems like venues are just definitely taking things in their own hands, which, I mean, you kind of have to. There hasn't been really any help or guidance from anybody. So if you don't take things into your own hands and try to do things, in accordance with CDC and local guidelines, then like, what are you doing? You are just kind of sitting around. And I have seen, there are some venues that they're just like, we can't even make this work for us financially to even try.
Especially with the different governments too. You might have one place that's like, yeah, you can 50% capacity. We don't care. We're Houston, whatever.
You could be Florida.
Yeah, Florida. Yeah.
They don't care.
I was telling people the other day, what I read about the Dolphins game was that they said that they could have full capacity at this Dolphins game, and the Dolphins are like, no, like, we're not doing that. Like, that's insanity.
Yeah, the NFL was like, no, thank you.
Yeah. And so you and Joe came over for the Chiefs season opener, and one thing we talked about then was it's scary to see 16,000 people in Arrowhead Stadium, but it's open air.
Yeah,
they seem to be doing a pretty good job. We had friends at the game who were reporting that people were getting kicked out for not obeying the rules. And it wasn't. Yeah, it's Kansas City. I mean,
I was really surprised by that they were actually enforcing it.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, it's insane.
I was being sarcastic, but you're right.
Yeah. It's,
I mean, you've been to a Chiefs game. People don't really act.
They don't listen. Yeah.
Appropriately.
Well, and you can't. I mean, I don't know, man. Kansas City people are a breed of their own, and you can't keep 75,000 people in check. But yeah, maybe 16,000. As we watched that game, one of the things we talked about was, you have to try. You have to experiment a little bit. And it seems like there's very, because some people on the other end, some people don't give a shit about sports or live music or anything like that. Their simple solution would just be, why are we doing this at all? Just stop.
Yeah. Just
halt everything. But what I think a lot of them miss is that you have a big empty building. You happen to have 3 big empty buildings. This isn't, there was no stimulus package for live events. There's been no government bailouts. A lot of times these cities, I'll speak of Kansas City in particular, is handcuffing you through other regulations that were not set up with the current climate in mind. And so, like a lot of places, my hometown included, there are different types of liquor licenses. And, it would be a fairly reasonable assumption to think that, well, you guys have outdoor patio, you have a bar, just open up and be a bar and try to get people in there every night. You're right near downtown. But you can't do that. Explain what's going on with the city and how those different liquor licenses are kind of biting in the ass.
Yeah, so the current mandate for Kansas City is 50% capacity for bars and restaurants with like tavern liquor licenses. But then you have to maintain social distance seating. So if you're a restaurant that, at 50% you can hold 100 people, but you can only do 50 people safely 6 feet apart, then you're at 50 people. You're kind of under that restriction. And so for us, we're a almost 1,300 cap venue, so we could do 650 people at 50%. But then if you add in maintain social distancing, it decreases by an extreme amount. And so there are no restrictions for private events or like private event venues that don't have that tavern liquor license.
Right.
So this is where it kind of hurts the live music aspect of this and concert venues in particular, because we also do private events. Like every single concert venue in town you can rent and have a wedding or bat mitzvah or something, but we have a liquor license and we have a tavern bar liquor license. So we could open, but then we have to maintain social distancing. And so we have a front bar lobby area And at 50%, you can fit 40 people because it holds 87 people. And then if you maintain 6 feet apart, that place is pretty small.
Yeah, it's narrow too.
Yeah, it's really narrow. So we're looking at maybe like 20 people. And then in the main space, the overhead is so high, it doesn't make sense for us just to open the entire venue as a place that people can just go and grab a drink. And we might see 5 or 10 people. We are close to downtown, but we're kind of off the beaten path. So
yeah, definitely on the fringes of downtown. And if there's a it's funny because you guys find yourself, seemingly from my perspective, in the live event part of downtown. You're directly across the highway from the Sprint Center. You're right down the road from a couple other venues, but these are not like walking streets like you'd get further down into that neighborhood, into Crossroads and things like that, where down by, this is going to be Greek to anybody who doesn't know Kansas City, but down by PT's or Lulu's or something like that, there's a lot of foot traffic down there because, all the little restaurants and bars and stuff that already exist down there. But up by you, there's a U-Haul.
there's
a Firestone.
There's
you can get your tires changed and check on your storage.
Yeah. But there are a couple breweries, but they are a few blocks away.
You're talking about the ones down closer to Mission Taco and stuff?
Yeah, so it's like City Barrel is a couple blocks away. There's Lifted Spirits Distillery, but those are, it's 2 or 3 blocks, and they're like city blocks, so it's not like they're just right around the corner. And it's not really much of a walking thing. So we threw that idea around, but it doesn't really make sense. And, we're still kind of throwing that idea around. At this point, it's maybe we do open that front bar and see what kind of traction we get. But the problem with the city mandates, kind of to go back to that, is that there has been no clarification on where we stand. I don't know if I should be following private event like venue rules to where there are none, or restaurant and bar rules because we have a liquor license where it's 50% capacity and maintaining 6-foot social distancing, which that number, by the way, at the Truman is 200 people
in a seemingly huge space. Now, food for thought. I mean, and I know we've talked about some of this stuff, so I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there for everybody else. I see the 2 big hurdles as one. You could, one solution for that is you can kind of do this. Hey, you can enter as a party, and then you don't have to social distance necessarily because, well, there's 10 of you, and you guys have all assumed that the 10 of you come together, leave together, and are within your social circle or something like that. But what I see is the biggest problem is that you're not a bar. You don't have TVs to watch sports. You don't have tables to sit around. To maintain that strict distancing, you almost have to have somebody basically tethered to a table or something. And other than the patio and a few in the bar,
they do have a few tables.
No, I get that. I'm saying that the patio and the bar do. But if you were going to go and try to get 200 people in there because the main venue, you're either going to have to rent or buy quite a bit of furniture. And then on top of that, it's somebody being out there making sure that people are being safe and everything else, So, I mean, it would be great. My head is like, oh man, that'd be a great beer garden or something like that. Or hey, let's get half a dozen TVs in there and have Chiefs watching parties or something like that. But
then you have to pay to be able to stream the Chiefs games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just it compounds for sure. And I think that's one of the biggest things is Joe and I are definitely of the problem solving variety, and we sit and talk about problems that aren't necessarily ours. Sometimes is we're just curious as to have they thought about this, And for 6 months, it's but we're both people who are both familiar with the Truman and familiar with venues and code and all this other shit, and it just seems like, man, there not only is there not really a viable path forward, there just seems to be an alarmingly small amount of support coming from government or private organizations or anything. It seems to me to be one of the most forgotten problems in this whole thing. I have all of the sympathy in the world for businesses that are going out of business because of this. Some of those businesses are businesses that are too new to be able to have money in the coffers, are in industries that are particularly affected, or were on their way out, or kind of weak standing businesses to begin with. As you see, we were talking about the Crossroads neighborhood between Mission Taco and the Sprint Center. It's about 3 blocks, and there's 13 fucking businesses with 4 lease signs in front of the buildings.
I know.
And they're not going to get filled anytime soon.
I feel like every time I drive by, I see a new one.
Oh, without a doubt. If you want to know a good business to be in, printing for lease signs is probably a pretty good business right now.
Printing signs in general, now open. Dining room now open.
COVID rules.
Rules.
The stupid ones you stand on that say 6 feet that are never 6 feet apart.
Yeah, somebody's making bank on making floor stickers that say stand 6 feet apart.
Exactly.
But I see all the things that are already going on affecting all these other businesses, and it's really hard to there's an argument to be made that retail spaces in America we're slowly but surely on their way out, especially in a lot of the weaker markets due to internet and things of that nature. For the same reason that I'm not shedding a tear over malls closing. I mean, I felt the writing was on the wall. It was just the expectation timeline was a lot slower. Same with movie theaters and things of that sort. But live music is an integral part of the last 100 years of this country, and I think is maybe one of the most American things that we all do together. Going to a concert is part of our fabric of this country, and what blows my mind is some of these other industries are so nuanced that it's really hard to have a prime directive towards solving this problem there. But the music industry is so big. Every city in this country has multiple of these venues, and for this entire industry to be overlooked on a national level is mind-blowing. Is there anything that I'm not aware of? Is there anything that is being done and I just don't see it?
No, it's really it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see other places be able to open, and it's frustrating to see people get away with larger gatherings when we're being told that we can't or it's unsafe. And you're right. I've had 4 or 5 proposals on the Truman Stage in 3 years. It's such an integral part to people meeting. That's their first concert. People contact us to get married there because they got engaged there, or that was their first date. Like it's a huge part of American culture and just our daily lives. Like music is everywhere, and watching your favorite artist on stage is something that I think everyone uses as an escape away from their daily lives. You go to the office and then you kind of go home and you make dinner and you go to bed, and then on the weekends you go out to dinner and you go to a concert. And when you're going out to dinner and going to a concert, you're not just supporting us, you're supporting the community in the neighborhood. And I think that's the most frustrating thing, is that there is no help. And there's no help for us. And so then the actual cities and the tourism departments and different things like that are losing money.
Oh, yeah.
Like the tax dollars of people spending money on hotels and going to restaurants and ride share and taxis and Ubers. And there's just so many things that people spend money on. They'll go to that gift shop, that retail store, and buy a Kansas City local t-shirt because they were there for the weekend.
Well, exactly. And think of how much advertising infrastructure goes into the entire thing. A lot of people were talking about restaurant workers and service industry workers at the beginning of this, but I'm not saying they fully recovered by any stretch, as we employ a lot of them. But they have some reprieve here. There's curbside takeout. There's small cap openings. There's all this stuff. A restaurant can sort of at least partially retool itself to operate on a more on smaller margins, and hopefully be able to negotiate with their landlords and take advantage of some of the government money that was out there. But there is no easy way to do this in the music space, and the amount of people. It's not. I look at it as, yes, there's the ripple effect of all the local business and the Uber and advertising and all this other stuff. But people don't realize how many people are employed in these venues. It is. I shit you not, half of our current staff either worked at the Truman or moonlit at the Truman or another venue in town.
Yeah.
And that it's such a part of the economy on a micro level that it seems. And once again, I harken back to the fact that there's venues in every city in this country. It blows my mind that somebody on the national scale isn't fighting for this. Even if it was somebody. I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of Live Nation or AEG or one of these big music conglomerates, but you would think that somebody, Capitol Records, for fuck's sake, anybody would be doing something to get someone's attention. And I feel that even the minor attempts that have been out there for social media attention and things like that have all kind of fallen flat. I follow a shit ton of musicians online, and I've maybe seen 3 or 4 people post about anything significant. That
it's all little shit.
Grabbing. Yeah,
it's all like, hey, I'm trying to do this one little thing. We're gonna do a live stream. Cool, but they're not pushing it the way they would everything else. It's I feel like what is missing here? Did everyone just not? I don't want to use the word lazy or something like that, but why aren't people being innovative and trying to figure something out? I don't know. It's very strange to me that No one's pushing something. Taylor Swift could. I'm not talking about the small guys. Our friends that are trying their best and doing live streams from Record Bar and all this stuff like that. I'm talking about like the big people, and I use Taylor Swift as an example because that's like people love that artist. Why aren't we seeing that? Why isn't the country music scene coming up and doing something more to try to help people?
There has been a few people come forward, and to be honest, like I can't think of really anybody off the top of my head because you're right, because it's been kind of like they say something or make a couple posts, but then that's kind of
cool.
it. And there is a Save Our Stages benefit concert happening with some pretty big names, and I'm trying to find it so I can.
Is that the one that's being hosted by the South by Southwest people?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe.
I saw something show up in some news article somewhere, but
it's a live stream music fest, right?
Yeah, so it's a live stream music fest. And it's presented by YouTube Music, so it's actually this weekend.
Okay.
But it's 3-day virtual festival
from everywhere. It's crazy.
But the biggest names, Dave Matthews is playing.
Nice.
Ooh.
Dylan Francis, the Foo Fighters.
Dave.
Our good friend Dave.
Well, if you really like Dave Matthews, you refer to him as Dave.
Oh, I don't
I'm going to go see Dave tonight.
No idea.
I wouldn't know.
I'm just going to go put on my flip-flops. And
my only thing I really know, I mean, I know Dave Matthews' music, but the only thing I really know is the singer from that band, Soul Coughing. After that band broke up, he did his own singer-songwriter thing, and Dave Matthews basically let him follow him on tour for years, pushing his own career. And so I'm stoked that Mike Doty was able to get the Dave bump. But other than that, Dave Matthews is dead to me. So.
Yeah, I mean, it has tons of artists playing, like Miley Cyrus, and she's actually been a pretty big advocate for it. She's posted a ton of stuff on her Instagram, but she also lives in Nashville, so it's a big integral part of her life, and obviously what she grew up, doing.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah, but other than these artists playing this festival, I haven't heard anything from Nathaniel Rateliff. Mm-hmm. He's playing this, but Macklemore is playing this as well.
The Roots, Rise Against, Portugal the Man, Phoebe Bridgers.
So my question here is, I would assume that most of these bands are probably doing this pro bono or something like that. But, one, how much can this raise and how much can it really do? If you got your 1/10,000th of the industry's, check from this, you're going to get like a check to maybe keep the power on for a month or something like that.
It's mainly a raising awareness. Okay. So there are two different acts right now that are being pushed into Congress, and one is the Save Our Stages Act, and that one actually creates grants specifically for live music venues from the Small Business Association, and that one is backed by the NIVA, the National Independent Venue Association. So it is for independent venues. You can't have any affiliation with the larger promoters like Live Nation and AEG.
Where do you guys fall in that? Because I know you do some AEG stuff.
We fall in the middle. So we are independently owned and operated. The owner is one guy named Josh, and he is the best person I know. He actually, out of all companies that I've talked to, he's one of the only people that hasn't laid anybody off, which I think is fantastic, and that he's using, his reserve to keep his staff employed. Mm. AEG and Live Nation have cut,
95% of staff,
which drives me nuts because they have the money to to support those people.
Yeah, but they don't have any work.
Right. Well, I mean, okay. So our friend Trevor, and Trevor through Adapt,
the Adapt conference.
Right. Trevor is very involved in the music industry in a bunch of different ways. Was part of Artery Foundation, and now is I forget his agency's name. I always forget it. It sounds like
Dynamic Talent.
Maybe.
Is that his?
I don't know. I forget every time I hear a new agency name. I forget. It's like I remembered like the core 10 I learned about when I was in the music industry. Like Kenmore Agency and TKO and all those. And then anything new, I'm just like, they all sound the same.
It happens to me all the time. Like literally, we were just talking about. I can't tell you if it was Save Our Stages or Save Stages or whatever.
Right.
Like all that stuff. I screwed up.
No,
it just happens. It's not a big
I
deal.
was right. It is Dynamic Talent.
Okay, so Trevor Swanson, Samsonite. I don't remember his last name at the moment, but from Dynamic Talent, he had to tell his employees, you guys got 6 weeks to figure something out that we can be doing to be a profitable company, or we have to, we can't be a thing because there's no live music. And they did. They did make that pivot into consulting and a bunch of other stuff. That part of it's the Adapt conference, but part of it's also consulting for bands that aren't touring and getting them set up at web stores that are a little more active than just selling your stuff on Merch Now or something like that. And a lot of people have had to make those kind of moves. But that's not an easy task for a lot of companies, a lot of these venues out there. And one of the ideas that was thrown around that I heard was kind of converting some of these venues into retail locations, or bringing the community together so that you can have like kind of these I guess punk rock flea markets or something like that. What is your I know Joe and I have talked about this at length, and I probably haven't talked to you all that much about it, but what is your take on that? Like, how do you feel about that, your venue, other venues, and how viable of a path is that?
I think if you do it as like a one-off or something, then it is a destination thing. You make it cool. If you're doing it to where like that's just what you do now, I don't think that that's really that viable. Because if you're going to do some sort of like market or something, I'd set it up as like a private event, or as like an event. Like this is a one-time.
Like a Christmas
weekend
thing.
only.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
or it
here's-
happens weekend, every weekend.
Yeah, or every weekend in November. Like making it.
Which is a great idea.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a way to get community together. It's a way to support those local, I'm assuming local, or at least small artisanal crafters or market people that are going to be there. And it also helps the venue a little bit. I think on the venue side, there'd need to be some sort of revenue share, maybe sell tickets to it. To be able to monetize that, because if not, you're kind of just opening your doors for other people to then make money.
Right. No, absolutely. I think one thing you brought up earlier that even I think is more compounded with other venues is you talk about you're not a foot traffic location. Even though you're downtown right between two of the biggest neighborhoods in Kansas City, just far enough outside of the footpath to really be able to sustain yourself just on that alone. Joe and I know plenty about wrong location, as we had a brick and mortar store that was just a little too far away
Just
from where everything was.
One block.
Yeah,
Made a
one
big
block
difference.
makes
people
yeah.
just like, I don't need to walk that way to that
Yeah.
store. If you're the last store, you have to be like in the malls. That's why they have those end caps.
Oh, gosh,
Sears and JCPenney's. Because then no one would ever walk down that end. And think about it. How many times you go to like one of these beaten down malls on tour and it's like, I ain't walking down there. I don't give a shit if it is a
all you see
GameStop
is
down
like
there. I'm not going there.
Auntie Annie's pretzel and like a
Yeah.
TJ Maxx at the end or something like that. You're like, I don't care what else is down there. That's
Fuck, I'm done.
yeah.
So that's the same way with with your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Think about that. Where the Truman is. It's like, why am I
Right.
going to walk there?
But I think in neighborhoods that are even in worse situations, or not neighborhoods rather, but venues, there are so many venues that are
Or in the
either
middle of nowhere.
in the middle of nowhere, or in just straight up bad neighborhoods. You
Yeah.
know? I think of the we have what is it? The Shockwave is the venue out in Miriam here.
Aftershock.
That's what it is. Aftershock. Aftershock is a venue that is surrounded by nothing. No one would in a million years would ever just go there to unless it was a very intentional like an event to support the place.
What about that other place with the country music artists?
Knuckleheads?
Yeah, Knuckleheads.
Oh yeah, that's in the middle of fucking nowhere too.
Yeah, but people go there.
And I'm sure
Yeah,
they're
they
still
do,
open.
but not.
They're open.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
They've been open since May.
Okay.
I haven't heard of any super spreader events, so I guess they're doing something. I have seen that they are doing like blues jams and stuff like that. It's just something for people that like Knuckleheads.
I've never been there. Do they have outside staging?
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
it can be indoor, outdoor. They have like a big open area to be able to go outside. So
Okay.
they're obviously, utilizing that, which is something we don't have.
Right. And then I also think about there are a lot of venues in this country that are just in plain old bad neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I can think of many that I've played that you don't go for a walk before showtime. You know what I mean? Because
Just quickly, our friend Shane, the cornhole guy who made the boards right there.
Shane Diebert, I think.
Yeah, he just asked if you think the COVID's effect is going to have, what it's going to have on the potential relaunch of the Vans Warped Tour.
I don't think. I mean, this is my 2 cents.
Good question.
Take it for what it is. I don't think Warped Tour is coming back. If it does come back, I don't think it'll be Kevin Lyman doing it. I think it would be a thing where he sells that. I think he'll be 60 next year. I know his kids are involved in the music industry. Maybe that's something that they take on. But I think with the last few years of it sputtering to some degree, I think that the festival thing really got oversaturated. And I think that when you are able to, I'll put it this way. When I was younger, I was obsessed with finding new music. And I didn't have the internet in the same way that I do now, where I can literally just go down a rabbit hole and Pandora or Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. And so I also grew up in a town that didn't get a lot of concerts for the type of music I wanted to go and see. So I wanted to see punk rock and hardcore and metal and things like that. And now all that stuff is so accessible that you don't have to chase it down. And the idea of going outside on a 95-degree day, getting there at 10 in the morning so you can get in time to see the first band, staying there till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I mean, it's a great ticket price, but it is a grueling day.
But do you think that's because we're old?
Maybe.
It hasn't changed. When it was around for 20 years.
But if you can go to the Midland or the Truman or Uptown and see the exact 4-band package that you want to see for half the price and be in and out in 3 hours, I think there's a little bit of spoiledness that has come with it.
Yeah.
I think that there are the event type festivals that I think will stick around. Burning Man, Bonnaroo, Coachella, things like that. But I think this like traveling festival in parking lots kind of thing. Now, this might create a starvation mode in people's music.
Exactly.
Where they're just dying to get back to something when things do kind of normalize. And I know all three of us have had conversations about the psychology that is going to remain after all this. I'm a little more on the optimistic side. I think a lot of people will be open to re-engage once they feel a certain element of safety. I know that some people are like, nothing will ever be the same again. Live events are dead forever. And so there's quite a broad spectrum there. But I think that it might be a slow restart, but I think that live events will come back. I just don't know if Warped Tour is going to be one of them.
I think if Warped Tour does, it would be on a smaller scale. They might do LA and New York or something.
Right.
Like I agree. I don't think that the traveling parking lot festival will be as viable, and some of those venues that they used to go to might not exist.
Yeah,
very true.
I think that it could come back because maybe it's going to be harder for people to book smaller venues and all this, and I think it might go back to what happened was why Warped Tour failed is I remember talking to Kevin Lyman on how it was just too oversaturated, and the people that were promoting Warped Tour and are part of that group were booking Panic at the Disco the night before Warped Tour.
Oh yeah.
Even though they're on the same team, they were doing shit like that. So he's like, I did my best. I don't know what to do here.
Well, every industry has transition moments where, I think the music industry, you can look at it in 20-year segments where this works for 20 years and then somebody's going to reinvent the wheel and that just doesn't work anymore. It happens with the medium in which we listen to music. It happens with the promotion of it. Dude, just 20 years ago, everybody was talking about how record labels won't exist in 20 years because of the digital streaming or not streaming so much, but digital music and people not buying hard copies of records anymore and all this other stuff. And now they've figured out a way to make it so convenient for it to be part of your life that they now still make the same amount of money and their industry has evolved, and those who could evolve were the ones that survived. I think very much of Jacob, who owns Pure Noise Records, talking to me about he started a record label basically as the fucking floor fell out of the industry on the record label side of things and had to come in. Some of the labels do the 360 deals where they're getting money from your touring, money from your merchandising, so that there's more than just the music sales there. But with somebody like Jacob, he has done, he just leaned in to the streaming side and just understood that, hey, if we get enough streams, it doesn't fucking matter how many CDs we sell. 50,000 streams is, X amount of dollars. and we can have successful bands, and we can maintain a label that is quite successful. And I think you do have to ask yourself, like, is that what the music industry has to do? The ones that can survive this storm. What does it look like on the other end? Do you have any inclination of like where you think this will be on the back end? Whatever we want to call that. Let's call it. I hate to be optimistic and talk about a vaccine or treatments, but when 60,000 people can go to a football game and feel safe, I imagine you'll be able to open.
I would hope so.
I would imagine as well.
Yeah.
So do you have any idea of what you think that looks like? Because there's also an argument to be made that there might be less competition and therefore you can be busier. There might be a hip hop venue that's no longer around, so you might be able to take on a genre of music that you don't do a ton of, or country, or any other number of things.
Yeah, I think that there's different ways to look at it, and I don't know. There's consumer confidence, which you're right. I think if 60,000 people are confident in going to a football stadium, then they'd be 1,000 people would be confident coming to a venue. Mm-hmm. But the other side of that is that the venue is not open air and a football stadium is most of them. So, there is that difference too as well. But I think that people want live music. I think that people will go out. I do think that you will see a small drop in ticket sales at first, and then I think as people get more confident, as there are more events without tons of COVID cases and things like that, then we will start to see more people. But I think it's going to look different. I think that when you walk through security, it's going to be touchless, that you're not going to get a stamp on your hand or a wristband. You're going to have something else that is less contact. When you show your ID, you won't hand it to anybody. You'll have to just hold it up.
Will they scan it or something like that?
Or they'll scan it. Yeah, the experience is going to change in the way that the safety and health precautions that venues and places are going to have to take, which honestly is not a bad idea.
Yeah, it forces people to do something better. I mean, I feel like the stamp on the hand is such like an old world thing. There's so many better things we could be doing now. Just think of the idea with Eventbrite, having the things you could scan, but how many venues don't even take advantage of that?
Right, yeah, and being able to do mobile ticketing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so I also am on the board for Boulevardia, a festival here in town, which I know both of you know.
Yeah, and if you know what Boulevard Brewing, if you live anywhere near the Midwest, you probably have a good idea of what Boulevard beer is, but maybe on the coast you might be lacking the knowledge. But big festival happens in the West Bottoms here. How many people? 20, 30,000 people come out?
Yeah. 20. That's a perfect estimate, actually. So Boulevardia, it's actually, we're a nonprofit board, and then Boulevard is the biggest sponsor, so they are two separate things. But with Boulevard Brewing Company, we sell tons of their beer and stuff, but we're having to have that conversation now on if it's something that we are going to be able to explore next year.
Right.
And in 2021, I'm not sure if that, for festivals, a lot of festivals that have postponed or canceled this year are looking at now in the fall of 2021. So you brought up earlier about 90-degree heat. They're kind of using this as an opportunity to pivot into more cooler heat.
Yeah.
And, moving into early spring.
Kind of in that Riot Fest timeline, There's certain festivals that have always been more spring or fall oriented, but the vast majority have been in the summertime, in the dead of summer, and we've suffered through them. I think of something like Boulevardia as being like, oh man, that's probably one of the first that could happen, just because it is done over the course of 10 or 12 city blocks in a neighborhood that is, almost nothing goes on there any other time. And other than the beer garden itself, is pretty much exclusively outdoors.
Yeah.
And I think if the science still kind of says what the science says now about transmission rates and outdoors and all this stuff, I could see that being perfectly doable.
Well, and Boulevardia moved this year.
Oh,
no one knows that it moved because it didn't happen.
So it was supposed to be at Crown Center, and we announced that it was at Crown Center, and we announced that it was moving to a new place, and then that was it. And then we were about to announce the lineup of bands, and then that was in March.
So at Crown Center, I know there's the outdoor, where the skating rink and the
you ever seen the Irish festival that they have there?
There's there's a Washington Square Park, I think that's the name of the park right there, but there's a huge park. And
is that the one that's just off Gillum?
Off Oak, yeah.
Off Oak, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But on Grand, it's on Grand, and But you basically set the stage up in the middle of the street, and you get this really pretty, downtown skyline. And it still is all outdoors, and it's something to do. But I think that you're going to see next year and for the next couple of years that, like I said, that experience is going to be different, not only from like a safety and health procedures, but also the way that you watch the concert, because you're going to have to buy pods or set up socially distanced and not rushing to the barricade with a ton of other sweaty people and, just like rubbing up on each other anymore.
I can't imagine how strange it's going to feel as, a performer. Or as a spectator. I am, in my old age, not the front row or mosh pit type at this point. But
having my own pod.
Mosh-tirement, as Wolfie would say.
Mosh-tirement.
You know me. I mean, when I go to shows at the Truman, the first thing I try to do is get upstairs to the balcony and, and when there's only 100 people up there, and grab myself a drink and fucking stay away from everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited about having my own pod with just my friends and the people I know.
right, yeah. It'd be like box seating for a sporting event.
I mean, I don't think anybody would not like that. I mean, you'd have the occasional younger crowd that really likes to do that, which I wanted to get in the pit and,
hip hop and EDM are going to be really hard.
But EDM, they wear masks usually anyway.
They're fine.
Yeah.
I think EDM is going to be, probably, I don't know. I think it's one of the most resilient.
I can see. I mean, I think there are definitely potentials there. Also, the rave culture side of it, a lot of outdoors history. I think you could definitely do a lot of that stuff. You don't need to be in 1,000 Cap Club, and
people are really respectful. EDM kids are so respectful of each other. They just want to love each other and hang out and have a good time. And so I think that they will respect the rules and will respect the guidelines that they have to follow in order to see, and to rave with their friends for their favorite DJ.
What do you? With the Truman specifically, because that's the one that's the closest here. I obviously know you're starting to experiment with events at these other ones. What do you see? We're not gonna be able to do live events outdoors. Kansas City gets pretty cold.
Yeah.
As the winter hits, there's going to be a need for indoor events or just a complete no events at all. Do you see any chance of small events in February, January? What does that look like?
I definitely do. It's actually something we're actively working on right now, is trying to get smaller events. And I'm working with a couple local people to maybe do some bar pop-ups or, potentially like an open mic just to get local musicians in when it gets colder. I think that people want it. And I think that we are in a good position to be able to make that happen. I think it's going to take some time to perfect it. And, hopefully we'll see stuff in November. I'd love to see stuff in November and December. I think it'll be smaller and more sporadic. But by January, February, I think you'll see more venues starting to experiment with it. And definitely us. The Truman's definitely trying to. So if your band wants to play at the Truman,
now's the time.
Let me know.
Do you? When do you see anybody even attempt to tour?
Oh, I think in the summer. I think for club level, we're going to see the busiest summer if it's viable. And I don't know if that means a vaccine or if that just means that this is just the new normal and they just do a tour to where it's a smaller capacity and bigger venues. Like, I don't know exactly what it would look like, but I think that artists are planning on going out in the summer and the fall of next year. And
it's crazy to say those kind of timelines. And I know we've been using these sorts of timelines for quite a while, but we are less than a month into autumn.
I know.
And we are talking about something as
next year.
Yeah, we're talking about next summer and fall as just around the corner. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. We're like,
at this point, it feels that way.
It does,
feels like it's gonna be another 6 months of this bullshit, and we'll be back to living life, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and just to be, I read a lot about this stuff and try to listen to anybody who has something with knowledge. Whether it be the medical side, or science side, or political legislation side of it all, and I don't think I think my biggest shock in this whole thing has been how little the evolution of understanding has changed in 6 months. How we don't seemingly have much better of an answer than we did 6 months ago.
No, it's the same.
Yeah, and that we Joe and I on the show often talk about 9/11 in this weird generational life experience. Everybody of a certain age experienced this very traumatic event, and we lived with the fallout.
Because that's all we have. We don't have like a Vietnam War that was like,
Right.
we do have the wars that happened, and but they weren't something that the whole country felt.
We didn't. You and I didn't have brothers who were being drafted to be sent off
Yeah.
to die.
So the only thing we can talk about that's kind of relative is September 11th. But the thing I can see is that it eventually it went back to normal. And living there, to me, everyone was like, "This is never going to be the same." My dad used to say it over and over and over again. Yeah, a few things changed. We're more worried. We have a TSA thing that's nationwide. We, things like that stayed in place. But we still go to the city. It's still a thing.
Yeah.
It didn't change. It's not like people live in a bubble now and are afraid to go. New York City's dead because people are afraid to go.
The thing I'm saying about
down
9/11
the future is that it's not going to be that bad.
Yeah, and I do agree. I think eventually, once there is a solution, there will be a new normal. We live in a new normal now, but there will be a new normal. And but I think what I think is crazy and why I draw some comparisons to 9/11 is because we had cooperation and action directly after 9/11, and there seems to be very little of that right now. And we had an answer to 9/11. Whether you agree with war or the Patriot Act or TSA pre-check or TSA the scanners or whatever, that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that we had a very, very active campaign to stop it from ever happening again, reestablish security and the illusion of safety in people's minds, and to better or worse, go out and bomb the shit out of them. And we don't seem to have that prime directive right now. There is so much miscommunication, misinformation, and divisiveness around something that is an order of magnitude larger than 9/11, and how they look in the history books that'll be something for somebody further down the road. But 6 months of a constant crisis is a national disaster, a world disaster, unlike anything it has ever seen, and to have so little fucking leadership.
I know.
And I'm not talking Republicans or Democrats. I'm talking across the board. We're talking governors, city councils. We're talking businesses. We're talking everything. I think the majority of this has been very poorly mishandled by both the public and the government, governmental sector. And that is what makes something like, we're talking about next summer, we're talking about next fall. We were talking about July and August. In May. And now, and obviously those have come and gone and nothing has happened. And that's kind of like, where I think a lot of my disbelief lies.
My only thing that makes me feel good about it a little bit being a reality down the road is that they've been talking about the potential of next fall while they were talking about, like, since the beginning. It was like, it was like, we're going to do this, but it could end up being fall of 2021.
Yeah, I don't
remember.
remember.
Like, they should have just stuck with that.
Yeah.
And I think we'd be in a better spot if people just listened to that.
Yeah, I say summer and fall optimistically, but the reality is that we don't know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just crazy to think about. But if artists aren't touring and if we can't have gatherings or live music by the summer or the fall, then you're going to see a mass exodus of live events. And venues are going to have to close their doors because they do not have, you can't sustain that long on just doing small socially distant shows or, a 50% capacity wedding or things like that. Like you'd have to, obviously move your business model around a little bit. And I think that some venues definitely have done that and have pivoted to be able to do that. But a lot of these venues don't have that reserve to even open their doors right now.
Right. Yeah. Just that variable. At least that the fixed overhead cost is there, and the variable is now a big question mark because you don't know if you can get enough butts in the seats to cover that additional expense, and now you're even in a deeper hole than you started in.
Well, and just think about you get like low lease forgiveness from your landlord, and they're like, cool, well, you can, if you don't pay us, but that means you can't have anything in the space. Like, we'll hold this space for you because we don't have anybody else to lease it to, but basically like hand us the keys, and when you're ready to reopen, then we'll start charging you immediately. So you like, and this is not the case for us. Luckily, our landlords, for the most part, have been really great in working with us on certain different things. But there are venues to where they're not even going into the office or going in to like maintain the building. The landlord's, building supervisor is, because the second that you have an event or have a concert, you have to pay full rent.
Yeah, you're back up and running. But
Right.
Yeah.
And depending on your
Which
lease
is crazy
agreement,
to me. That needs to change. You know what I mean? I think that first agreement with the first 3 months, 4 months in, like, yeah, fine. But now we're looking upwards of a year now.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to understand that these are businesses too.
Yeah.
And so there's no support for them either.
right?
And so, one thing that is kind of big news here in Kansas City that happened fairly recently is that the owner of the Oak Park Mall and his investment company went bankrupt. I mean, so we're talking the largest mall in Kansas City. The former owner, or the owner of the former Plug Your Holes headquarters, is the same guy.
Oh.
He owns 200 and something properties in Kansas City, and went
It was a
bankrupt.
Quixotic thing, that whole strip right
yeah.
there.
He owns that whole block from Denny's all the way down to the end
Yeah.
of the building, the whole thing. Filed for bankruptcy. Owner of the largest mall in Kansas City. Some of these people don't have enough. Even the big companies don't have enough that could have ever done anything to mitigate, or to ride this out.
Yeah.
My big fear is that there are companies, especially like conglomerate type companies, and this was initially my big fear for restaurants, is that we have, every city has its own flavor, its own unique food language, and one of my big fears was that these restaurants early on weren't going to be able to get through this, and that everything on every corner in America was going to become a TGI fucking Fridays. And because they're the kind of companies that can be like, well, hey, we got like a cool $1 billion in the bank. Let's just buy up all these properties, ride it out, and open up another Wingstop on the corner. And something no one asked for and no one needs. But, and I live in I live in a bit of a suburban area. And
You have everything possible.
Everything possible except for what I fucking want. We got TGI Fridays and Hooters and fucking Buffalo Wild Wings and all this shit. But it's corporatized restaurant, restaurateur type stuff up there. And there's a couple, like strip mall Vietnamese places and things like that. But for the most part, it's all just this like standard American chain food. And my biggest fear was that, God damn it, I just feel like some buddy with a lot of money is just going to go, yeah, I guess I'm in the music business now, and come in and buy out 250 nationwide venues and just kill that uniqueness of the music industry. I already have, that's kind of where my sense about AEG, Live Nation, Clear Channel, some of these things already was coming into this, is that like, man, I really hate that I'm going to go to a show in St. Louis and a show in Minneapolis, and that venue is owned by the same big conglomerate, and I would have really hated to see the independent, music industry, the independent venues go under due to, one, no fault of their own, but two, just like its opportunity. I also can't blame the conglomerate for seeing an opportunity and taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
And so it's this big thing, and that was those ripples through the water are some of my biggest concerns moving forward. Is that someday Josh might not have another dollar left. He might not he might not have one more month left.
Well, and it's also like, I wonder if those kind of deals with those bigger promoters will change. So we do work with AEG and Live Nation in booking our rooms.
Mm-hmm.
We do have an internal concert department. We do it ourselves as well. But they have the contacts and to be able to, their own tours,
Yep.
stuff like that.
But when you can book 66 rooms in America, and for one tour, for one tour
for one
package,
artist, yeah,
and like one that makes the agent happy, that makes the label happy, that makes the band happy, and then now you just end up with this kind of copy and paste package all over the country.
Yeah.
It makes a ton of sense.
But I
Doesn't
wonder
that kind of already happen since you guys have that kind of deal?
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it already does exist. Yeah,
it does exist, but I think we'll see it being more common.
Yeah, I agree.
To where those kind of deals change to where this, a small independent venue owner still wants to be in the music industry and doesn't want to sell. So working on a custom deal with a bigger conglomerate or somebody that can afford it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Me personally, I don't know.
My only concern with that, and I'm sorry if I'm interrupting.
No, you're fine.
My only concern with that in particular is the same problem I have with all of the major record labels kind of blocking out the sun for the independent labels to thrive in. And once again, music industry has always been very circular or circular. Anyway, don't know my words.
Yeah, it's like me.
Yeah. So many of them come out of my mouth in one day that eventually I'm going to fuck a couple of them up. The problem with the venues, I fear for up and coming and the next wave of new music. I feel music has gotten pretty plastic in the last few years anyway. And so to then come into another potential wave of, if you are not this profitable, you're never going to have a chance. You'll never get booked anywhere. You'll never be signed. And that unless you get discovered on SoundCloud, the independent music and its roots could be kind of killed.
Well, and that's why I hope that those deals are favorable to the owner, that the owner has the venue owner has a say, because then if they still have the opportunity to book their local shows and book smaller stuff, and then AEG just comes in and helps with, or Live Nation helps with some bigger things, but that also puts that venue on the map. So then more artists that are maybe independently touring in a van, which we've all done, they see it on what was it, Indie on the Move.
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
It was like the where you could independently search for venues around the country.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if it still exists.
No,
but
it does not. I don't think so. I can't say without checking.
But it's then the Truman is a larger venue, but the smaller venues might not be on that radar for that band in Minneapolis or in California to play Kansas City until maybe they heard that their favorite artist is playing there, and that's where those bigger conglomerates can come in.
Indie on the Move still exists.
Oh.
Okay.
Just putting it out there.
But it's like, I don't hope for a full conglomerate takeover. And I just don't think it's a bad idea to work on partnerships to be able to for these independent music venues to keep their doors open.
It's a lifeline. It needs
it's
to
a
happen.
lifeline.
It's an unfortunate one, but at the same point, we need something.
Well, in the same way that the music industry has had to adapt every 20 years for something, this is just one more point to adapt to. And I hope for musicians' sake, and I hope for listeners' sake, that it is in the greatest benefit of the art as a whole.
And I think it will. One of the biggest things that I've been saying anytime I talk to anybody about this is that the music industry has had to pivot and become the beginners. They have to be the ones that influence how everything else happens, and they have to, after 9/11, music venues and sports venues and stadiums, clear bags, metal detectors, changing the way that you enter the venue. They've always
stuck with it.
And they've had to stuck with it. It's never gone away. They've always had to be the innovators and the people that make this happen. So make people feel safe for that consumer confidence. And I think that's where that's what has to happen. And now we have to continue being those innovators for the music industry and change the way the contact list and think outside the box for how you experience that live music, because I don't think live music is going away. I just think your experience is going to change. That's
the thing is, a lot of people are like, I don't think it's ever going to come back. I don't believe that.
Yeah, I don't believe that either.
I do not. Like, there's no live music has existed since the Roman times. You know what I mean? Like, there's been plagues, there's been other stuff. Like, live music's not going to go away.
Yeah, it's just how it's executed that might change. Yeah, because I can only speak for myself, but these virtual concerts, they suck. The only one I enjoy is Ben Gibbard. Watching Ben Gibbard do, 5 Death Cab songs acoustic in his
this
closet.
is a good segue to a question. Is that we had our friend Matt Goody, Goode, ask, what is everyone's favorite band? Basically, who would we want to see live if we could right now?
If I could, if I could see one band live, it would almost.
Or maybe on a live stream. What would some of them worth? You're saying
for a live stream, I mean, I think my answer might be the same to both. There's one band that I've always wanted to see and never have seen, and this is going to make me seem very old, because their biggest record came out in 1994 when I was 11. But it would be Counting Crows.
Okay.
Whether watching him or them do like a set online would be it'd be enjoyable. But that is one band to see live. That if that was my first concert after all this, to be like Starlight or something like that, that would probably be mine.
I can't think of anything. My favorite band, everyone knows, Blink-182. When I was younger, was Papa Roach. Do I want to see them on a live stream? No. I really don't care. I'd rather just get new music from artists. I don't know. Is that because I'm jaded?
We have probably between the three of us. I can't even put it like 10,000 shows. I mean, because if you take it I have to assume I've seen 4,000 or 5,000 performances, maybe more. I mean, I've played over 1,000 shows in bands where I'm seeing 3 or 4 other bands every night. I've done countless Warped Tours where you see 40 sets a day. You run a venue. You've been on Warped Tour.
Yeah, I mean, the idea. I've seen Newfound Glory is another top band of mine.
Yeah, but
we've seen him him. We've seen them 80 times.
Easy. Every time I die at Bayside, I've seen these bands so many fucking times that for me to see an artist out there that I really, really am compelled to go see live, it has to be somebody that has never been in my sphere I've never had an opportunity to see Counting Crows. We went and saw Metallica a couple years ago. I saw it. Technically, we did do a festival in Australia where Metallica played, and I watched them from roughly a mile away. And it was hardly a concert. I hardly felt like I was at a concert. But to go to the Sprint Center or the T-Mobile Center now and to watch Metallica, even though they're old, and it's not like seeing them, in their heyday. It was fucking awesome.
It was really awesome.
It was
they
awesome.
Tried really hard, and those TV things floating.
Oh yeah,
the monitors.
And Jim Brewer was there for some fucking reason. You know what I mean?
Because he always loved Metallica.
No, I
just,
absolutely get it.
It's that old guy mindset. It was like, I guess we can get someone to open. How about that comedian guy that talks about us?
Yeah,
let's do it.
It worked. I was totally fine with it. It was just very strange.
It was super strange.
But I think, I am personally somebody who's maybe a little desensitized to live music. So it would absolutely have to be one of those bucket list bands for me, or something maybe like the Rolling Stones or something like that.
I mean, my favorite band is Fleetwood Mac, and I know that they're getting a ton of fame right now.
Yeah,
because of Andy's skateboarding with the cranberry juice.
Yeah,
but I have never seen Fleetwood Mac live, and I know that they have been touring, even in their older age, and I would still love to see them.
Yeah.
But as far as
would you watch a live stream?
I don't know.
If it was for a cause, I would.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't honestly really watched a ton of live streams.
No, me neither.
I feel like it does take away the experience.
I agree 100%.
That's the thing. It's an experience. It's like people that I love movies, but when people are like, yo, you just watch this home. No, it's that big screen, going, eating that popcorn, being in that room is.
And it
means something to me.
I'm a big movie guy too, but I don't care about the theater.
So on a small scale, I really understand how going to a concert is different than watching it on TV.
Yeah. No, I
still get it, but it's just, it ruins that experience.
I think one thing that I'm surprised hasn't been done more, and something I would like to see happen from musicians, and this is even something I brought up to Trevor because he has quite a bit of pull in that world, is I think it'd be great if you got kind of this storyteller-esque writing process behind the scenes. Don't put out a record, but spend, do episodically, do 6 months of the writing process, and we get little glimpses of what the record's going to sound like in the end, kind of like what they did with Sonic Highways with the Foo Fighters. And then I've always been a big fan. I grew up watching MTV Unplugged. Always loved the MTV Unplugged setup. Obviously, the crowd was a big part of it, but everything from Nirvana to Dashboard Confessional, I love pretty much every one of those that they've done. I love seeing bands reinterpret their own music, and I think that something like that would, for me personally, would be more compelling to watch online than just another acoustic version. There was so much more thought that went into the acoustic versions that were the Unplugged series, and I think that even watching Ben Gibbard do his Def Cab and Postal Service songs acoustically, and he also does a lot of other people's songs too. He's just so goddamn good. Mm-hmm. We definitely have a lot of digital forgiveness in how good musicians are these days, where I'm not saying that musicians today are bad. I'm just saying that musicians of a certain era all had to be good because you couldn't fix it in post. And so I think maybe there's a little bit of live stream stuff where I've seen people just not really, they just don't hit it out of the park, or it comes across as too flat, it comes across too webcam-y and all this other stuff. But I think it's a worthwhile replacement for the best artists out there. But I think doing something more compelling than just sitting down in a poorly lit room with a $250 microphone on the top of a camera, I would like to see something more compelling. I know Under Oath did a really cool thing that I'm not a huge fan of Under Oath, but I kind of dug what they did. Yeah.
I think the big artists, now thinking about it, think about like, I used to love the MTV Music Awards back in the day. Why? Because the performances were kick-ass. They'd always just pop it out on the floor, fucking this guy, and teaming up with this guy. If they did that stuff, I feel like people would really, it becomes more of like a movie experience type thing.
It would also give work to production companies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which it's right now that, there are some that are doing live streams.
Which just brings me back to my thing of like, I don't see that happening. I haven't seen Panic at the Disco put on like some kick-ass live stream where they're using, where Brendan Urie's doing all that stuff. Where we saw him at the T-Mobile Center. He's flying around on his piano above the stage,
right?
And like you get goosebumps because you're like, oh shit, he could fall. That's crazy. The rigging, all that stuff. Why aren't we seeing that? Even
if you did it in the sense of like just very like go music video vibe. Where you're like you hired the crew that does like Psy's music videos. I'm a big Psy fan, and Psy PSY, like the Korean dude, because
Gundam style.
Somebody thought I meant somebody else that has a comparable name. No. I'm definitely talking about the Gangnam Style guy. But anybody who knows his music videos, they're like so over the top, and I would it would be fun to see some people really interpret their art through some super elaborate music videos. Bring back the days of Michael Jackson and Thriller. Bring back these theatrical events that were. Fucking Joe Pesci's in that. Come on,
that's expensive.
So is touring.
So if you don't have any money or you don't have any assistance from anybody else,
only the biggest artists could do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which that would be awesome to see, but
I'm just saying we're just not seeing that. So I'm
because
surprised.
they're probably also trying to keep their reserve for however long this is going to last. I think everyone is trying to be as financially conscious as they can be right now to not spend any money.
Right.
Because how much would you sell those tickets for? And how many do you have to sell to be able to make a profit?
I think you'd almost have to put that on Netflix. The only way for them to get the money up front, not worry about tickets, is it's just part of the Netflix or the Hulu or something like that. I will say that there's actually a surprise. There are some bands out there who are making a surprisingly large amount of money right now, and not even huge bands. Like I was told information. I'll say the band name out loud. I will not tell the dollar amount, but there is a band out there that really didn't have much of a merch store presence prior to all this. Their name is Five Finger Death Punch. They are making more money online every day than they did on tour.
From merch sales?
Yeah. Yes. And now I also understand as an e-commerce company owner, I also understand all the infrastructure that goes behind that, and that somebody's got to ship that shit, and somebody's got to make that shit, but those are all jobs too. But there are bands out there that are not... I think that barrier for entry to put out some really, really compelling content right now is a lot lower than probably you'd think if the band is currently making those right financial moves. For fuck's sake, Muse has like $500 like fan packs that they're selling, and my assumption is they probably sell out. But yeah, it'd be nice to see somebody kind of like leaning into this whole thing with better content. But I 100% understand all the barriers for entry that exist. Bands are not YouTubers. Bands are not a video production crew.
Right.
There's a lot of people you have to get involved in something like this to be able to handle it. Have you at the Truman thought at all about doing kind of like a full concert type vibe there? I don't know anybody in the industry that's doing that, other than an Under Oath thing, doing a kind of the live experience where you're playing at the Truman but recording off the board or something like that to try to get a more live feel to the online existence.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we've been reaching out to agencies and management and bands directly to try to get to say, hey, do you want to use our stage and come in and stream and using some of those ticketing streaming platforms. The biggest...
You reached out to a friend of ours today. I'm not going to say the name.
Yeah, I did reach out to a friend of ours today. The biggest thing is that, well, that friend of ours, their band lives here. How many bands do you know live in the Kansas City area?
I can think of 2 rappers.
Yeah.
Because we got, Mac Lethal and Tech Nine. Yeah.
But Tech Nine's doing shows. Like he's doing he's doing concerts.
Of course he is.
So, you know.
If anybody in Kansas City was doing shows, I already knew it was Tech Nine.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. He doesn't give a fuck.
I would love to team up with Strange Music and do something with them. And that's, you know, definitely on our list of people to reach out to. And that's just it, is like, yes, absolutely. I would love to do that. And I would love to make it work, you know, to where it's beneficial for both parties. But the issue here is that there's just not really that many there are local artists,
right,
definitely, and they're currently doing a lot of stuff. And there's the Lemonade Park, the outdoor concert. It happens every weekend.
Yeah, like 100 people per show or something.
100
like that?
people, socially distanced. I've heard great things. It's put on by the guys at Record Bar and Voltaire, the restaurant in the West Bottoms, and I think that's amazing. And when it starts to get colder, that's the local artists are going to need a place to go, and I'm hoping that we can be that place. But at the same time, if you're trying to do something on that big, massive scale to where you need money to do a lot of production, those artists that have that money to spend on production don't live in this area.
Yeah, I can only think of a few notable musicians who live in the area, aside from, I'm sure there are some like legends that live in the area, but like, you know, the singer of Godsmack, or no, singer of Seven Dust lives here.
Singer of Godsmack.
No, sorry.
Little midget.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
We can't say that word anymore, Joe.
Sorry.
There are definitely, it's kind of crazy because the Kansas City area has such a rich music past, but like, it's like 20 great punk rock bands that all broke up. You know?
Yeah. I mean, the Get Up Kids.
Yeah.
You know, they're still in the area, and they've played at the Truman. The great show, great people. But I don't know how much money they have to spend on the large amounts of production.
I'm pretty sure they're all dads, so probably not much.
Not much.
You know?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly, you know, it was Kansas City and Lawrence, like huge for those bands. Get Up Kids, Appleseed, Cast, you know, Casket Lottery. But at the same time, like they're not Brendan Urie.
Isn't Coalesce from here too? Coalesce?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure they're from Lawrence.
I think
and then
you're right.
we have the Casket Lottery and a few others, but no, yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, it is. And then I don't envy California either, because California isn't letting anybody into venues.
Right.
But they have all the bands.
Exactly.
Like everybody lives in California,
Yeah.
so it's who knows, man. I think somehow.
But everyone's got a town that they grew up in that's not just.
Yeah, nobody's from California.
But they don't live there, so are they going to travel there? That's you know, like if they live in LA, are they going to travel, you know, come back home? A Puddle of Mud is from Kansas City.
True story. I hate
That's the
band.
Saviors right there.
That's it.
I can tolerate almost anybody. Like, but they're one of those bands that is like nails in a chalkboard.
Oh, it's pretty bad.
Terrible. Yeah, I hope for the best, and
Me too.
I you know, I encourage anybody out there to if you have any opportunity to support the places that have supported you through live music, that you contribute, and you know, if it means pre-purchasing tickets or VIP access to something down the road, if that means kicking them $100 bill just to, you know, help, you know, save that, you know, keep that business up and running and cover their expenses.
Yeah.
I strongly encourage it.
Buy merch. Definitely the tickets. If they have shows on sale, buy tickets now. It just helps in the long run. And then also just like social media stuff, like just interact with them, you know, save their posts, like make sure that they don't go unnoticed.
I agree 100%.
If it's a place you love.
In closing, is there any national cause out there that they can donate directly to, if somebody feels so compelled, that will definitely get money out to these venues, or at least towards legislation?
So I'm not sure about any like money, like places to donate money, but the biggest one that I believe in myself is the Restart Act, and that's something like if you have, you know, 2 minutes to email your representatives, give them a call, text them. There's ways to do it, but the Restart Act will extend the unemployment. It also will give gig workers the opportunity to get small loans.
Much needed.
And so it also helps the venue, because the venues, if you've had a certain amount of revenue loss, then you can apply for loans as well. And the forgiveness of the PPP loans, then the Restart Act kind of loosens those, because the PPP loans have helped businesses, but it doesn't really help the music industry when we don't have staff to maintain, because you have to maintain your staff. if you don't
And
have,
what do you do when there's no events?
if there's no events,
Yeah.
then you could receive that PPP loan, but then you have to pay it back, and and that hurts in the long run as well. So the Restart Act really does help the venues plus workers in the industry, and not just the venues. And that's something that I feel pretty strongly in, is the touring artists and production and stage hands and audio crew and everybody that, ticket takers, ushers, box office. Like, there's so many people involved in the music industry. They're all without jobs. And it's insane to me that we're just being looked over. And I think the Restart Act is the closest way to get some help.
Yeah,
Cool.
I support that wholeheartedly, and I also encourage everybody to get out there and vote. Know what your local representatives know what they stand for, and do what you can to support live music coming back healthier than ever. And the artists.
When's your conference?
Oh yeah, and the Adapt conference.
Yeah, so I am teaching a class on the Adapt conference. It's October 22nd, and it's streaming. Mine is Venue from March to Now. I'm teaching it with Sean Lupton, who's from the Ryman Opry Group. So we're going to talk about just different ways that we've handled situations between the two different types of venues, and then also how to kind of help your independent or smaller venue potentially make some money.
What's the website for that?
It's the Adapt Conference, adaptconference.org.
Cool.
Was there anything we didn't talk about that you felt that should be talked about?
I think that's about it. I know you guys have talked about Mask Now, Party Later in the past. That was my company that made that, and it's something we still feel strongly about, even though we're starting to have smaller shows. But you still need to continue to Mask Now to Party Later, continue following those guidelines and everything. And if you believe in Mask Now, Party Later, you can use all the assets. They're out there for everybody. It's not trademarked or anything. We just want to get the word out. But that's just masknowpartylater.com.
Awesome.
Cool.
Casey, thank you very much.
Thanks.
As a friend and a knowledgeable contributor.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks.
Bye.
For the first time, I feel like not saying how the hell did we get here.
Yeah, it's all very, very concise.
This is all. What's going on? You screwed it up. Let's talk about tacos. Tacos.
Next week.
Bye.
Bye.